Have you ever felt like you don't fit in this world? Like you're too much for others but not enough for yourself? If you're watching this, maybe you're one of those people who feel deeply, who notice what no one else sees, who carry a burden that apparently no one understands. Today, we're going to talk about what happens when you're real in a world that prefers to pretend. Sometimes it's like everything is too loud, too bright, too much stimulation, while you just want silence, just want to breathe. But people keep telling you that you need to be more cheerful, more social, easier to deal with. And so you shut up. You fake lightness. But inside, everything weighs heavy. It's like carrying a backpack full of stones. Stones made of unspoken words, of swallowed tears, of silenced screams. And when you try to explain the weight of this backpack, people look at you like you're making it up. It's not that serious, they say. You're just overcomplicating things. But it is that serious, at least for you, because you can't watch a movie without feeling every emotion of the character. You can't witness an injustice without it sticking to your soul for days. You can't pretend everything's okay when it clearly isn't. You observe the world and see layers that others don't perceive. You listen to conversations and notice the words that weren't said. You feel the sadness behind the forced smile, the anger disguised as politeness, the fear hidden in arrogance. And this is exhausting, because no one else seems to see. No one else seems to care. And there you are, carrying not only your own feelings, but also the ones that no one wants to acknowledge. How do you find a place for your depth in a world that seems to only want the surface? This question haunts you, because you can't be shallow, even when you try. You can't pretend that simple things are enough. There's always something more. There's always a layer underneath. And this makes you different. Makes you heavy, makes you too much. Have you ever been afraid to speak what you feel and be judged as exaggerated, dramatic, too sensitive? Have you ever swallowed words that burned in your throat just to not ruin the moment? Being yourself sometimes is like carrying a secret fire, too hot to touch, but impossible to extinguish. You observe, feel, perceive what no one says. But when you try to share, you feel like you're too much. That your intensity scares people, that your truth makes them uncomfortable, that your feelings are too big for the space the world offers. So you learn to measure yourself, to dose, to say less than you feel, to smile more than you should, to agree when you disagree, to stay quiet when you want to scream. And this hurts, because it's like trying to fit into clothes 3 sizes too small. You can manage to put them on, but you can't breathe properly. How many times have you wanted to talk about something that touched you deeply, but stopped? Because you knew they would look at you weird. That they would say you were overthinking. That you were complicating something simple. How many times have you felt such great joy that you wanted to share it with the world, but held back? Because your joy is too intense, too loud, and it might bother those who prefer lukewarmness. The fear of overflowing teaches you to always live below your capacity. Always less than you are. Always smaller than you could be. And then you start to wonder, how much of yourself have you already had to hide to not be rejected? The answer usually hurts, because it's a lot. It really is a lot. To be accepted, you start to silence yourself, to fit into molds, to squeeze into places where your essence always seems uncomfortable, like trying to fit a circle into a square hole. It fits, but it hurts, and it leaves marks. It's hard to be deep in a world that values shallow. You feel too much, but no one sees. People are too busy, too happy, too distracted. You observe everything, but it seems like no one observes you. Sometimes the pain isn't even being rejected, it's being ignored. It's being there, feeling, carrying, perceiving, but being invisible. Like your pain doesn't count. Like your feelings are irrelevant. You're the one who listens, who understands, who carries other people's problems, the shoulder to cry on, the person who always has time, who always cares, who always asks how your day was and really wants to know the answer, but who listens to you, who asks how you are and waits for a real answer, who has time for your complexities, for your doubts, for your fears. The silence from others is a sharp knife. It says that your pain doesn't matter, that you are small, that your inner world is unnecessary complication, that you should resolve it alone, without bothering anyone. And then you close up, Because you realize you always give more than you receive, that you always understand more than you're understood, that you always love more than you're loved. You build invisible walls. You stop sharing. You stop trying. You stop expecting anyone to really care. And inside, something screams silently and uncomfortably. Does anyone see me? This question echoes in the emptiness of your soul. And the answer, many times, is a silence that hurts more than any scream, because it confirms what you already suspected. In this world of rush and superficiality, those who feel deeply end up alone. It's a strange pain. It's not physical. It doesn't leave visible marks, but it corrodes from within, like water dripping on a stone, slowly but constantly, until it makes a hole. Have you ever found yourself smiling when you wanted to cry? Answering, "I'm fine," when your chest felt like it was about to explode? There's a high price in pretending everything's okay when inside you things are a whirlwind. But the world seems to demand this, that you be light, pleasant, good vibes only. And then you learn to wear the mask, to dress yourself in superficiality to survive. At work, you're the positive employee. At home, you're the family member who doesn't cause trouble. With friends, you're the one who's always up for anything. But the mask has its own weight, and the more you wear it, the more it sticks to your skin. The problem is that, over time, the mask sticks to the skin. And when you try to take it off, it hurts. Because it's already intertwined with the fear of being rejected, with the need to be accepted, with the illusion that you need to be perfect to be loved. And you start to wonder, would anyone be able to love who I really am? Because behind the mask lives a complex person, with pains that don't fit in elevator conversations, with joys that are too intense for business hours, with thoughts that go beyond what's socially acceptable to talk about. You fear that, if you take off the mask, people will run away. That they'll discover you're not as strong as you seem. You're not as positive as you pretend. You're not as simple as they would like you to be. So you maintain the performance, day after day, until you forget what it's like to live without acting. The mask becomes a second skin, and you become a second version of yourself. An edited version, approved, socially accepted, but empty, because there's nothing of you there. Only what others want to see, only what's safe to show, only what doesn't bother anyone. And at the end of the day, when you're alone in your room, without audience, without performance, who looks back in the mirror is a stranger. There are moments when you feel like screaming, but can only whisper. Because being too honest can hurt, being too intense can scare. Being too real can push away. The sadness when someone asks how you are. The anger when you're wronged. The tiredness when they tell you that you need to be strong. The joy when it's too intense for the moment. You keep storing it away, like someone who keeps letters never sent, words never said, feelings never shared, truths never revealed, until the soul starts to weigh heavy, like a bag full of stones that you carry on your back, and no one sees the weight. So no one understands why you walk slowly. It's a silent conflict. A war that happens inside you, every day, all the time. On one side, the desire to be whole, to speak your truth, to show who you are without filters, to cry when it hurts, to scream when it's too much, to love with all the intensity you carry. On the other side, fear of being judged, of being rejected, of being considered dramatic, of being too much for people to handle. And every time you choose silence, something inside you says goodbye. To who you could have been, to what you could have said, to the love you could have given, to the truths you could have shared. It's like dying a little bit each day, in parts, in pieces, until there's almost nothing left of who you really are. Is it worth living like this? This question haunts you. And the answer is on the tip of your tongue, but you don't have the courage to say it out loud. Because the answer is no, it's not worth it. But admitting this means you need to change, and change hurts, and has risks, and might mean being even more alone. So you keep swallowing, keep silencing, keep dying slowly, because it seems safer than really living. We live in a time when everything needs to be edited, filtered, approved. Social media, relationships, even words seem to have to be chosen with surgical precision to not hurt superficial sensibilities. But where does your soul fit in all of this? When you make an effort to maintain the mask, to please, to be accepted, what's left of you when the lights go out? We live in a strange time, where everyone has a perfect life on Instagram, but depression in real life. Where everyone seems happy in photos, but takes medicine to sleep. Where everything shines on the surface, but rots underneath. And you? Have you also become a character in your own life? Have you ever stopped to think if, in seeking acceptance, you're not selling pieces of your own soul? Every yes you give when you want to say no. Every fake laugh when something isn't funny. Every time you agree to avoid fighting. Every moment you pretend interest when you're bored. These are small pieces of you that go away, and you don't even notice. Until one day you wake up and don't recognize yourself in the mirror anymore. The theater of life has become an endless play, where you're the main actor of a character you didn't create, speaking lines you didn't write, living a story that isn't yours, and the audience applauds. Because the performance is good, because you learned to act well, because no one suspects that behind the curtain there's someone suffocating. But when the theater closes, when the lights go out, when the audience goes home, who's left? An empty person, tired of pretending, no longer knowing who they really are. Because they spent so much time acting that they forgot the original script. And then you wonder, if I take off all the masks, all the performances, all the filters, what remains? The answer scares you, because maybe very little is left. Maybe you've sold so much of yourself that you no longer know what's genuinely yours. In alchemy, there's the idea of the golden mask, an illusion of perfection, something that shines but is empty inside. How many times have you caught yourself trying to adapt to this false shine? The myth of perfection is a poison that makes us sick. It makes us seek external approval and hide our imperfections. But the truth is that our flaws are also part of who we are. We live in a society that sells perfection. Perfect bodies, perfect lives, perfect relationships, perfect careers. And you buy this lie. You believe you need to be flawless to be worthy of love. So you hide your scars, your fears, your insecurities, your doubts. Everything that doesn't fit the perfect image you think you should project. But the price of denying your essence to fit the mold can be too high. Because when you try to be perfect, you stop being human. You become a photograph, an image, a well-constructed illusion. People might admire the image. They might even envy it, but they can't connect. Because there's nothing real there to connect with. Perfection is cold, distant, unreachable, and alone. Your imperfections are what make you unique. Your scars tell your story. Your fears show your courage. Your doubts reveal your intelligence. Denying this is like denying half of your soul. The part that fights, that stumbles, that gets up, that bleeds, that heals. The golden mask shines, but doesn't warm. And in the end, do you prefer to shine alone or be imperfect with company? The choice is yours. But know that choosing perfection is choosing loneliness. Because no one can relate to a mask, no matter how golden it may be. How many times have you felt angry at yourself for not being able to pretend? For not being able to be light, nice, pleasant, as the world seems to ask? Authenticity sometimes weighs heavy. You realize that your truth makes people uncomfortable, that your intensity pushes away, that your questioning irritates, that your depth tires people. And then comes the dilemma. Stay silent or speak. Calm the soul or adapt to the game. This internal conflict isn't small. It's a silent battle, where you wonder if it's worth being truthful when everything around seems so plastic. You look at other people and they seem so calm, so conforming, so at peace with superficiality. And you wonder, why can't I be like that? Why do you need to question everything? Why can't you accept things as they are? Why do you have to feel so deeply? Why do you have to complicate what seems simple to everyone else? The anger comes because you feel defective, like you were born with one extra sensitivity, like you're allergic to superficiality. You wish you could turn it off. You wish you could live on the surface. You wish simple things were enough. You wish you didn't care so much. You wish you didn't feel so much, but you can't. And this generates a muted anger, an irritation with yourself, a desire to rip out this part of you that feels too much, that perceives too much, that bothers too much. But ripping out this part would be ripping out your essence. It would be killing what's most precious in you. It would be becoming an empty shell. So maybe the question isn't, why am I like this? Maybe it's, why can't the world handle who I am? Maybe the problem isn't you being too much. Maybe it's the world being too little. When the world screams, sometimes, the soul asks for silence. It's in solitude, not loneliness, that truth begins to emerge. It's there that you realize that the weight of being real is also the weight of carrying something precious, your essence. Like the alchemist who needs to cross the darkness to find gold, you also need to cross the discomfort of not fitting in to find what's yours. In solitude, you stop pretending, you stop acting, you stop trying to please, and finally, you can breathe. It's like taking off tight shoes after a whole day. The relief is immediate, and you wonder why it took so long to do this. There, in silence, you find yourself. You discover that you like your own company, that your thoughts are interesting, that your feelings make sense, that your intensity isn't a problem, it's a characteristic. In solitude, you don't need to explain why you cry watching a movie. You don't need to justify spending hours thinking about a conversation. You don't need to apologize for feeling deeply. You simply are, without filters, without masks, without performances. And you discover something surprising. You like who you are when no one is watching. Silence reveals things that noise hides. It reveals your strength, your beauty, your uniqueness, your importance. You realize that maybe you don't need to fit anywhere. Maybe you are the place. Solitude isn't escape, it's encounter. It's coming home. It's arriving at yourself. And when you learn to be enough for yourself, when you discover that your own company is sufficient, something changes. You stop seeking external validation. You stop depending on others' approval. You become whole. Not because you found someone who completes you, but because you discovered you were already complete. You just needed to stop dividing yourself into pieces to please others. Being real requires a sacrifice. Giving up being loved by everyone, because deep down, those who live on appearances can't tolerate those who choose to be truth. And this hurts. But it also liberates. You realize that by giving up trying to please, something new is born. A silent strength. A deep peace, even if accompanied by longing. You don't belong to all places, nor to all people. And this isn't a flaw. It's a gift. When you stop trying to fit into all groups, you discover where you really belong. When you stop trying to please everyone, you discover who really loves you. It's a painful process, because it means losing people. It means not being invited to certain parties. It means not being part of certain conversations. But it also means finding your tribe. The people who love you not despite who you are, but because of who you are. These people exist. They might be few. They might take time to appear. But they exist. And when you find them, you understand why everything else didn't work out. Because you were trying to fit where you didn't belong. You were trying to be loved by those who couldn't love you truly. The cycle of acceptance begins when you accept that you don't need everyone's acceptance. When you understand that quality is worth more than quantity. Would you rather have 3 friends who really know you or 30 who only know your mask? Would you rather have one love that accepts you whole or several that only accept your pretty pieces? The choice is yours, but know that choosing truth is choosing freedom, and freedom has a price. But it's worth every penny, because when you're free to be yourself, something magical happens. You attract the right people, those who are looking for exactly someone like you. And then you understand that it wasn't you who was wrong. It was the place where you were trying to fit. Being real in a superficial world is a constant challenge, but it doesn't have to be an eternal burden. You can find refuge in art, in writing, in nature, in meditation. Spaces where the soul can breathe. Start small. Choose one person to be truthful with. One moment of the day to take off the mask. One place where you can be yourself without judgment. Write what you feel, even if no one reads it. Cry when you need to, even if no one sees. Speak your truth, even if no one understands at first. The process of becoming who you really are involves accepting your own darkness and seeking balance between light and shadow. Transform the weight into strength. Your sensitivity isn't weakness, it's a superpower. Your depth isn't a problem, it's a gift. Your truth isn't too much, it's exactly what the world needs. Jungian psychology teaches us that the process of individuation, that is, becoming who you really are, involves accepting your own darkness and seeking balance between light and shadow. That's why I made a special ebook, Alchemy and Archetypes, where you'll find practical exercises that help anchor this truth in your daily life, so that the weight transforms into strength. Find your practices, those that connect you with yourself, that remind you who you are when the world tries to make you forget. It could be meditating 5 minutes every morning. It could be writing 3 pages every day. It could be walking in nature every week. The important thing is having a place where you can come home, where you can find yourself when you get lost in the midst of others' expectations. And remember, you're not alone in this journey. There are others like you, people who feel deeply, who question, who aren't satisfied with the surface. They're out there, also trying to find their place in the world, also carrying the weight of being real in a society of appearances. When you find your tribe, everything makes sense. And you understand that you don't need to change who you are. You just need to find where you belong. If you made it this far, know that your essence matters, even if the world doesn't yet have eyes to see it. If this content touched you in some way, share it with someone who needs to hear this. The weight of being real is exactly what makes us truly human. Keep being you. The world needs more truth and fewer masks.